Thank you. Did you come to the meeting today? Good. No.
Boy, she's beautiful. Here for support.
Were you driving your backhoe again? I'm sorry, but
It wasn't the backhoe.
It was a bicycle.
He cannot chew a gum and walk at the same time. We're negotiating.
Uh-oh. Ouch.
Wow.
He cut himself shaving.
That's right.
Good morning, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you. Did you bring that?
You're very subdued today.
he wore the green tie yesterday. You can't wear it 2 days in a row.
Next Monday.
I was so glad that Susan, she highlighted Wednesday.
I got it, dude.
Oh, I was on my way here. Yeah. You drove down yesterday for the meeting?
No, I was there unrelated business.
He came to see me and Bob.
Budget meeting.
Stand up, Abby.
So,
Smile big.
And fair advisory
Good.
meetings
Thank you.
Tuesday.
Wave.
So you might want to it's on the side.
Okay. Thank you.
So I would
I got you.
That's too bad. How'd you get that? You ever look in that thing?
Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, that'll be
Richard?
the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
No conflict.
You know, the good news is he's not on the county's insurance.
He cut himself shaving.
He was doing his eyebrows and he had an accident.
Thank you for the sympathy. Well,
Well, no, we didn't heard that. I think road construction.
oh, you're probably right.
Yeah, I think she didn't account for that.
Who's that?
Person that got coming from closed is not here yet, and there's no explanation.
Like we don't have any.
I know. It feels
Yeah,
like it
road
should be like,
construction.
Oh, gosh,
because our
yeah.
office
It's
here is
everywhere.
so
So,
humid in there, you feel like you're on
let's
the
just do
East
it.
Coast or something.
No, road
I feel like,
construction, all coming over there.
yeah, I've never been to Hawaii.
Fredonia?
So we have the request, right?
yeah, we did.
Wow, look at that. You know, 16 seconds to spare. And it's early.
Sorry, everyone.
I had faith in you.
It's just wasn't my best one.
That'll be nice.
They asked me to crash up.
Last time we met, we saw a whale. It was fun.
You had a lot of people in that.
So like going on vacation with your grown daughters.
That's fun.
It was. They had a good time.
Yeah. Yeah.
We weren't planning to.
Bring the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is public comment. Anybody wish to address the board before closed session? Seeing none. Non-sensitive items to be discussed in closed session.
Mr. Chairman, the board will be meeting in closed session for a conference with legal counsel, significant exposure of litigation pursuant to subdivision B2, Government Code Section 54956.9, and for a claims report.
Okay, with that, we will go into closed session.
My niece showed her rabbit last year, and she got best of friends and reserved best of chef.
A good leader is delegates.
Why did? They delegated it, but yet more than they selected delegated.
She didn't deserve it. But her bunny, she was a champion bunny. What kind of bunny? She's a miniature hawk, I think. She's adorable.
Give me a 50%.
But they moved to Reno, so she isn't doing anything somewhere, so my parents got stuck with the rabbit.
I tried to.
But they didn't
call
ask
that.
her leader that she
Tried to call that license.
didn't have a show or anything, so she's on YouTube right before she has to show on how to show a rabbit. Yeah. Because they're the little boards and
So Chris,
the year before, when I first had my video, somebody
Two or three car accidents, all that, yeah.
radio was on and somebody called us and things announced.
Yeah, three car, very things, yeah.
Nobody heard.
No, not yet, that was today.
Sometime this morning,
Yeah.
about 7:30 or so.
There's a couple other things going on too, but we haven't gotten confirmation. It wasn't very good though. It's a tough spot.
Yeah.
Underground.
Yeah, the lightning was unbelievable.
Yeah, lightning storm Saturday was.
We were just talking about it.
And I was like, I can't go up and now. And so by the time like I got there, they were talking. I was like, this is oh my god, oh my god, I was like, I don't know what they
The streets where I was on.
Wow. Well, actually, like, you didn't get as many fires. I mean, I thought, you know, it was going to start bubbling up again.
The wheel was. Channel 2
Should have done it right there.
Yeah.
800,000 strikes.
Chris Montgomery takes it, he has some sort of app, follows it, and then he does like a screenshot, and then he posts it out there, and it's, showing the storm as it's moving. Yeah, it's totally amazing.
It's called Weatherbug.
We were down at the Bluegrass Festival, and he just posted, it showed the storm coming from Reno up through Florida, just as the last, this was on, Saturday, Larry Jones was on stage, and he had a 50-minute set, and he played for 10 minutes, and he talked for and everybody half the people got away, and just as it was over with, they didn't get people were ready, except for Sunday, the storm hit, I mean, it just hit, just as everybody left their time, but we followed Chris's host thing.
It was good. I was amazed we didn't have 50 fires from that. I just,
Well, there was a good thing about it, right, so they got that one, that was the biggest one. Chatting about that for a while.
we talked about it on the radio day with Jeff Montana and Joyce, and they were just on it. You know, they got on it.
Well, they had, I think Annex Sewer posted, it was there in Jamesville, but they had like 5 fire trucks just kind of lined up there in that flat straight thing there between church and Sears. And they were just sitting there waiting and watching. And as soon as, there'd be a lightning strike, or they ran as a T right there in the jump out. I thought that was smart, whoever thought of that.
Yeah, they were prepared. And of course, there could be a fire smoldering we don't know about.
It takes 2 or 3 days before the winds hit it.
Yeah, it becomes like coal. That was quite a storm.
But yeah, Chris was, because he's sitting there in the front porch, watching this. He has amazing pictures.
I call him the weather wizard. Yeah.
The blow-up one, I want to go with that too, but...
So on Sunday, Larry Gillis comes in number Bluegrass. He's up on stage, and he goes, he just started right off. Because he got a lot of feedback from everybody. No talking, just playing. The way he went, so he gave us 45 minutes of music in his 50-minute set. He goes, no talking, just keep playing. And
Well, we've been playing Johnny Cash, Ring of Fire, and all that, and we thought, well, maybe we shouldn't.
Let's bring the meeting to order, and perhaps you could find the Chapman leaders in the legislation.
ready, salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, guide us today at your meeting that we make profound judgment in all issues before us. Grant us the foresight to know the outcome so that no one will suffer from our decision. Amen. Okay, not item discussed in closed session.
Mr. Chairman, the board met in closed session for conference with legal counsel regarding significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivision 9.2 of Government Code Section 54956.9, and for a claims report. There was no reportable action.
Section D2.
I'm sorry, did I say D2?
You said 9.2.
Sorry.
D2.
No, it must have been that concession.
My vision's not
It must have
very
been that concession, so.
Okay, agenda approval of additions and our relations.
I have no changes.
Board members have anything? Nothing? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda as is.
Make that motion.
Second. Second. Motion and second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no, the ayes have it. There is I want to announce a change. The budget committee will be meeting July 7th at 2 o'clock. So we're going to meet today if we change to July 7th.
That's good because the Veterans Memorial Hall Task Force was meeting at 1:30 today, so I had two meetings stacked up on top of each other. So
I think it's a fair advisory meeting, 7th that evening. If somebody can attend. Okay, with that, I'll go to public comment. Anybody wish to address the board? You're all quiet today. Seeing none. Okay. Seeing none, unagenda item reports by board members. Mr. Jim Chapman, Supervisor.
nothing.
Nothing.
Other than the Bluegrass Festival was pretty, wasn't that well attended because I think a part of the heat, it also affected the main crews on Saturday, but those who did attend had a good experience. It was, the storms hit during the dinner break and right when the show ended, so during the show itself, it was no problem.
Okay, Aaron.
I don't know, there's been a lot of activity in Big Valley as far as additional hoop houses and fancy fences being built. And across Terminal Cutoff Road, there's 7 of them across that little short stretch of road out there in Moon Valley.
What's a hoop house?
What's a hoop house?
Well, it's like a greenhouse.
Marijuana.
Yeah.
Marijuana.
But there's a lot of fences, new fences being built out there in the Moon Valley area.
There's, Brian Dolly was complaining that there's a whole bunch of them that all center a circle around his property, so
Yeah, down there.
he thought his supervisor did a very good job representing.
I tried. I got way overruled on that.
Well,
Anyway, and then as far as the pilt goes, that's still a maybe. And part of the reason it got even this year was because Glynn County put a lawsuit against the state. And they got it dropped. The state talked them into dropping that lawsuit for the pill, but it didn't be funded for this year. And then since then, they went and changed that language, so it went from shall to may. So I don't know, maybe that's something we might want to look into joining with them again to get some of our money in arrears. And so anyway, that's just a thought we can have for discussion.
Speaking of that, I saw there was an editorial that was in the Modesto Bee that focused on Senator Berryhill, Tom Berryhill, and it had to do with negative flow counties. I mean, not only was PILT not funded, but it was put into, it's in these trailer bills, it's out there kind of in limbo, it floats around, and they changed the language from shall to may in terms of the current, but in terms of paying for the previous stuff, I don't know how many millions it was in 10 years. Yeah, it was a bunch, but the $6.9 million that was to go to fix the funding formula for the negative flow counties, which for Stanislaus County was the biggest of the 5 counties that were still affected by that the negative amount. We're one of those. Plumas and Trinity County, I think, are 2 others. I think Alpine, if I'm not mistaken, those are about 5. The Stanislaus County accounted for about $3 million. And what it is basically when the property taxes are apportioned, we only get 20 cents on the dollar. San Francisco gets 85 cents on the dollar. 70 cents on the dollar in Lassen County goes to fund the state portion for education. So we're basically giving the money to the state, and the state uses it to pay their education bill. And proportionally, we're basically penalized in the formulas when they were created way back in the 70s and 80s, and this has been a 30-year thing. So anyway, I guess the trailer bill, it's still floating out there. They said it was either going to be Monday or Thursday, and I watched on Monday, and there wasn't anything Monday that they took up that dealt with that, so it's probably going to be coming up tomorrow. But PILT monies and all that is part of that same kind of package, so we'll see how it turns out.
And then, the only other thing I had is the State Water Resource Control Board. What are we looking at for the Big Valley thing? I don't know if we need to talk to you guys or what. And then they've, part of the budget deal is that the governor gave power to the State Water Resource Control Board to go in to mandate that some of these smaller water districts have to consolidate. So here again, they're just getting more and more power added to them. I don't know what we can do to control their power, but they're just taking over big time.
We have made some headway on the groundwater legislation. We'll be reporting to the board in the next month or so. We've met several times and determined that it looks like the MoDOC Lassen Flood Control District may qualify to be the governing entity for that area if we choose to use that rather than forming another organization. So that's a good option, I think, to explore.
Well, that takes in like all of Lassen County and about 3/4 of MoDOC County.
A smaller portion of MoDOC.
Yeah, everything except for the Cedarville side of MoDOC is in.
It takes in the whole, that groundwater basin in its entirety, and that's important.
Right. It takes on the basin.
Yeah, I think we can look forward to agendizing that in the not too distant future, short term actually. In the meantime, we can have an after meeting discussion about that. We can let you know specifically about the progress made.
Sure. Awesome.
Thank you.
Good. Enough.
That's all I have.
Mr. Hill.
I'd like to, out of my discretionary fund, $700 to the Milford Community Association for signage on the private roads out there in order to keep them a fire-safe community. They're working with that.
This is July 1st.
Yeah, so it's new fiscal year. Going to do it now.
But we haven't approved the budget yet.
It's technically in the.
Technically, I guess it would be in.
Yeah, the record.
Yeah, I guess technically.
Technically,
Technically, you're okay.
So that was assignment on the private roads in order to keep them.
fire-safe community.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
That's it.
Okay, Tom.
I'd like to welcome Abby Hemphill to her first Board of Supervisors meeting. And also, I think I have $1,250 left in my discretionary money. I'd like
It's left from last year, so.
it's from last year.
Gone. Gone. Can't spend it, we're past that.
Okay, never mind.
I thought we spent it.
Okay, no, we didn't.
You don't use it, you lose it.
No.
Sorry. But you spend next year's.
Oh, wait.
Which is this year's.
Yeah, next year, this year started today.
Oh, wait.
Okay, all I have to report is, we had a conference call with North County EMS, yesterday, and the final approval and contract is done and okay with the local provider, SEMSA. So they did get the contract, and they will continue to be our ground ambulance provider.
Yeah, so kind of a twisted turn of events, but they got it done just in the nick of time.
Just in the nick of time, the day before, I guess.
So that's good.
So it's, the new contract had to be approved and signed by July 1st, and we did it June 30th, I think. So it was kind of a contentious.
Speedy this year.
Mountain Life, where are they in this?
No, this is ground ambulance only.
They didn't put in a proposal for.
Oh, they didn't put in a proposal, no.
For the ground.
Right, so they're doing the air only.
I assume they're continuing to do
Yeah,
it.
air is not contract.
Yeah, that wasn't part of
That's
the
wide open. Anybody can do air. Anybody can come in here and do air. The ground ambulance has to be done, has to be contracted in.
So, what about Aaron's district?
Well, he's not, and this is for the exclusive operating area And his area is not included in that.
Yeah, because there's two different zones.
Yeah,
Zone
I know,
one
but
and zone two.
where are you at now?
It changed nothing for area.
Yeah, it did not.
Unless you're asking, where are you at other than that?
I think there's,
Okay, that's the
there's
question.
still,
Where are you at other than that?
I mean, the,
still being provided through mutual aid agreements through the other eight,
Yeah, it's coming
other
from-
neighboring.
Okay.
it's coming from either here or Alcatraz, or Fall River, or Klamath.
You still have coverage, it's just not fast coverage.
It's not much.
Okay. I think that is it then for board member reports. So with that,
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to invite you to take up department reports if you'd be kind enough. There's some items within department reports that, even though we have a 9:30 time certain.
yeah, I see that 9:30 time. I didn't realize that was 9:30. That was,
Yes.
I'd like to take up H1 and 2 before we take up time certain.
we can do that.
And if you're ready,
Yeah, go ahead and make your,
so
H1 is what we're on now.
okay. So, Mr. Chairman, what I'm asking and recommending that the board do today is include in the budget, the proposed budget for 2015-16, and increase in the appropriation in the capital projects fund, which is the 151 fund, in the amount of $1,700,000. And $1.3 million of that is intended to be used for the acquisition of 2950 Riverside Drive, the property that we've discussed several times. The other $400,000 would be used, hopefully during the fiscal year this fall, to remodel that building and bring it up to standard that we can move our departments into. As far as the fiscal impact, the funds that we're intending to use are some of the proceeds of the debt issuance that we did last month, the $4 million borrowing. And the reason that I'm requesting that we do this now as opposed to in the budget that will be hopefully adopted in August is that we'd like to close this purchase transaction as soon as possible. We'd like to there are several inspections that we need to do after we enter into the purchase and sale agreement prior to close of escrow to make sure that the building is what we think it is. We'd like to get started on that immediately and hopefully close escrow by sometime in mid-August, maybe early August, if everything goes well. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to respond to them. This would require a 4/5 vote because it's an increase to the budget.
Question from Richard.
How much do you think the reports are going to cost?
It'll be, I think, somewhere in the $20,000 range. I think that'd be a safe amount.
What was the question?
The inspections.
I guess we can get it type later.
And, unless we get into something that requires, something that we don't know about that requires additional investigation, I don't think it will exceed $20,000.
Any other questions, Richard? Public have any questions they would like to ask on this, would you mind? Seeing none, everybody's quiet. What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, I would move approval to the fiscal year appropriation for the 1.7 for the Riverside property.
You have a second?
I'll second it.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the board.
Supervisor Chapman?
Aye.
Supervisor Alba?
Aye.
Supervisor Hemphill?
Aye.
Supervisor Hammond?
Aye.
Supervisor Kyle?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. We go to H2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is similar to H1. It's also a recommendation that we increase the appropriation in the 15-16 budget. As the board's directed us to do, we have made the borrowing of $4 million in part for the purchase of the Riverside Drive property and in part to make a contribution to the Honey Lake Valley Recreation Authority, along with the city making a contribution in a like amount towards the construction of a swimming pool. I'm asking that this appropriation be made, and for the same reasons we haven't adopted the budget yet. This expenditure will need to come back to the board for final approval, along with a joint powers authority agreement amendment, which will spell out exactly what each of the parties will do, which will include the 1.1 million in addition to an ongoing contribution for the
Well,
next
revising the $200,000 current, the JPA currently calls for each agency annually putting $200,000 into it. So by advancing 1.1 million, needs to revise that 200,000 to a much lesser amount, which would be the remaining 12 years worth of contributions. And it needs to also, I think, this action needs to be contingent upon the cities making available their 1.1, because...
And if I could address that. The action that we're taking today, I don't want to say it's just simply symbolic, because it's not, but it will require further action by this board to actually expend the money to transfer it to the JPA. So we'll be coming back with a recommendation to contingent on the city's contribution to make this contribution probably within the next 30 days. And this is just kind of a signal that it's in the budget and it's appropriated for that purpose, but the expenditure is not approved yet.
Should that still be in the motion as a contingent on the...
It could be. I'm happy with that.
I'll be more comfortable.
I would too. And my motion would be, if I could make it, is that we approve the appropriation for Fund 151-1511 by $1,100,000 to provide for the county's contribution to the Honey Lake Valley Recreation Authority for the new pool, contingent upon the cities making the same contribution plus the amendment to the JPA be put in place.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have a second?
Get that on, clerk?
Yes.
I'll second that.
We got a motion and a second. Any questions and discussion?
Are we getting a little bit of the cart, a little bit ahead of the horse here on this? I mean, as far as now, because we can still make this later on and get it all done in one fell swoop, can't we? I mean, rather than kind of piecemealing out and getting ahead of things.
We could do that. I suppose I view it as kind of a signal to the JPA and the city that we've got our money and that it's ready to and available there for that purpose. It could certainly be done at the same time that we approve the expenditure and amend the JPA agreement. It's really just a matter of style, I think, if we want to send a signal.
And I think it's, last November, December, the agreement was made to do this with the idea it'd be ready to go in place by the 1st of July. Today's the 1st of July. The county met that time frame, and our counterparts across the street, I don't think expected that to happen, and so they are kind of behind the 8 ball now. So this is basically the signal to them that they need to pick up their game and follow through on the agreement that they made, and I think it's designed to encourage the process along.
And what's their expected time frame to have their half met?
Yeah, so the city
Yesterday
received proposals for their financing. I believe last week was the closing date, last Friday. They're in the process of reviewing them. I expect it'll take them 30 to 45 days to complete.
Mr. Hancock indicated at another meeting yesterday that either by the end of July and no later than the middle of August, they would be in that position to do it. So they're working on their budget, and they're having to incorporate it in their budget as well.
Too bad they lose all summer for construction.
Well, the construction wouldn't be done until the fall anyway. But I think there's a lot of pressure coming from the JPA board on city staff to get, because we don't want to see this delayed. Right as this is all going on, too, the JPA has an RFP now out for design build, and I think the time frame for that is this next week will be. They're going to do site inspections pre-bid, kind of like a conference, and I think those bids are due sometime before the end of July, and then they're looking at wrapping that up the first week in August. And based on that process, we'll hopefully have a design-build company who will be, in a position to have a bid award to them. But in order to award that bid, we gotta have the money in the bank, and we have to have the ability to execute the contract. So all those pieces are gonna come together theoretically during the month of August with the idea that they could begin as early as in September with the construction project.
So that they're concurrently working on the bidding and the financing.
Right.
If it wouldn't make any difference.
No, and so, but we can't finalize that process until the money part is there, and so I think this is designed to signal to the city that, okay, our money's on the table, where's yours?
Okay.
Got one other question.
Another question.
Is this how does this affect the budget as you guys are moving forward before it's passed? If we have this passed today or if we don't? I mean, does that value you guys up with your budget planning process?
Changes nothing.
Changes nothing.
Yeah, it's totally.
With the 200,000 versus the 1.1?
Yeah, so the 200,000 having been in last year's budget is now in the proposed budget that you adopted last week.
Right.
So that transfer could occur as soon as the city makes that contribution. This not having been in last year's budget needs either this action or to be included in the overall budget and an expenditure action. So,
Okay.
I still never get a car that had the horse.
All right, any questions from the public? Anybody have anything they want to ask? Now's your time. Seeing none, okay, Madam Clerk, would you pull the board?
Supervisor Chapman?
Aye.
Supervisor Elbach?
I don't know that.
it's not one of the approved voting.
I don't know.
What do you expect out of Big Valley?
Say aye.
There's 4 of you. I don't know, guys.
Up here.
Yeah. I abstain.
Why?
Because
Supervisor Hemphill?
I stand on the fence.
Supervisor Hammond?
Aye.
Supervisor Pyle?
Aye.
Stand on the fence, get your nuts.
We're gonna move on.
Thank you.
We're gonna move on. Okay, we have a 9:30 time, sir.
Mr. Chairman, no farmer's talk today.
It just came out, sorry.
He speaks the truth.
The two on the end, we don't play. That is.
Mrs. Hodge, did you get that?
Get what?
That's what I
Were you talking about squirrels and fences or something?
Something about that.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to D1, resolution authorizing purchase of 2950 Riverside Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an item following the appropriation that we just made. As the board is aware, we've been in negotiations and reached an agreement with the owner of 2950 Riverside Drive to purchase that property. We have, although the agreement hasn't been approved yet, we've arrived at a price and terms that are outlined in the resolution that we propose to execute an agreement for. We published those terms for 3 times in the local newspaper, which is a requirement of acquiring public property. The terms, the significant terms, are at the purchase price of $1.3 million. We expect to close escrow within 60 days, pending inspections and our approval of those inspections. We propose to make an initial $10,000 deposit to escrow upon execution of the agreement. Seller will pay the property taxes which have accrued today on the property. Once we acquire it, it'll be tax exempt as public property. And we do not plan on doing an environmental survey as the property we've got disclosures from the seller as far as what's gone on in the property. We don't believe that that's a necessary procedure. There's no indication that there's any environmental issue on the property. It's been occupied by the federal government for quite some time.
How long?
Well, since construction, 20 years.
Yeah,
Yeah, I believe it was a 20-year lease that they were in. So the pertinent things that I'm asking you to do is to adopt a resolution. The resolution authorizes me to take whatever actions are necessary to acquire the property, authorizes the chairman of the board to sign the purchase agreement, which is attached to the resolution. Council has reviewed that agreement and approved the form of that agreement. It is a standard purchase contract, California Department of Real Estate contract.
And more as a point of particularity, it's an offer that this board would essentially be making to the seller. And would be, in order to be an effective agreement or contract, would need to be accepted by the seller. But that's the view that should be taken of this particular legal document.
Step one.
Yes.
Richard, I saw in this thing that you estimate 35 employees in there at peak staffing, and BLM had 40 to 45. Are we not utilizing our space?
Well, we will fill it with employees. Where we came up with that number, and I think you're taking that number probably from the environmental 64502. Is that?
That's correct.
Yeah, what we did is we added up the number of FTEs that are currently in those departments that we plan on moving down there. When we go through the process of, which is underway, of evaluating the space and who goes where, we will very likely have more than 35 employees. But for the purposes of that environmental document, we put what we knew we were going to have.
Okay.
So what's the resolution number going to be?
I think it's 15-043.
Any other questions for Richard? Here, you must have one.
Yeah. Under the resolution in the back, on the page, on the commercial property purchase agreement, the CPA page 2 of 11, on number 7, you have inspections, reports, and certificates. What kind of inspections or investigations are you going to?
Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Tony Shaw, Deputy County Administrative Officer. To Supervisor Albaugh, to answer your questions about which inspections, we're anticipating a professional architect or engineer to go through the building for their evaluation, and then also an HVAC and roofing inspection.
Okay.
And then we will also be looking at the current as-bills, which we've already received from the city, and the maintenance and repair records from the owner.
Okay, very good. And then if you turn the page to 3 of 11, the escrow, how much is the escrow going to be? How much is the county staff going to be of the escrow? Is that the 10,000?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we don't have an exact estimate yet.
We have to pay what the cost?
Yeah, what this item is referring to is the escrow fee.
Oh, I have, yeah, I don't know.
As opposed to title insurance. And we don't have an estimate. Those are generally less than $1,000, the actual escrow component.
Any other questions? Tony?
Tony, who do you guys have in do the space evaluation? I know you told me.
Pete Heimberger, and the Public Works Director, is currently evaluating the proposals that came through, so I do not have the actual name of the engineer or architect, but that can be forwarded to the board once we've made a decision.
Any ballpark figure on how much that's going to be?
I don't have that estimate. I'm hoping that it's under the CAO's purchasing authority.
Yeah.
Who's the real estate agent that's handling the transaction?
Yeah, Hydrick and Company from Reading. They're the seller's agent, and acting as ours as well, because we don't really require the services of an agent.
And then I have one other question. Are we going to be able to get the engineering plans and the blueprints, how that building is constructed and built? Is that going to be part of this sales agreement? So we have that for records?
We have those, Mr. Supervisor.
Any other questions? Anybody from the public wish to speak, or everybody's happy?
One quick question, sir.
Yeah, you had to come to the podium and state your name for the recording.
Annie Westerbeck, and I was wondering, who is paying for the inspections? Are you splitting the cost?
The county will be paying for all the inspections.
It seems that you, generally in real estate, I'm trying to remember now, as I had a real estate license for 4 years. Yes, the buyer often pays for the inspections, but it is negotiable, and you certainly could ask for them to split the cost of those inspections, especially with a building that old. You don't know if there could be some water damage or bug damage or whatever. It's just a thought in the negotiations. If I was your realtor, I would suggest that you, since if something comes up, then it's really negotiable about who pays for the repairs. And you don't want to be left, say, you paid for that, so maybe you want to pay for all the repairs too.
We considered that in the negotiations. We opted to pay for the inspections.
I see.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions? Seeing none,
One quick point, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sorry, I have one.
The initial proposal by the agent representing both us and the seller was that the title be processed through a different title company. We opted to keep the one local, so we went with Chicago Title, whatever it's worth.
good.
I have an attitude.
Okay, I just have one thing I wanted to point out, because I'm sure there'll be questions about the value of this property, and just for the sake of understanding how we arrived at the purchase price and negotiated that purchase price. The county assessor has this property assessed at a little over $2.3 million. The seller, when we began negotiations, had an asking price around at $1.9 million. We contracted an appraiser who did a very, very nice appraisal report on the property, basically because of the tradition of federal buildings being constructed and or buildings being constructed for federal purposes, being leased out for the first portion of their life, maybe 20 years, and then the federal agency moving to another building and these things becoming vacant. And this occurs not just in Susanville, but his analysis shows Eureka, Alturas, all sorts of areas where these buildings become derelict. The building we're in now, I think, used to be a federal building. He came up with a value of 1.1, basically because of the probability that a building like that would remain vacant for a very long time or require significant changes to make it usable. So we spent a lot of time in negotiating with the owner of the property and arrived at the $1.3 million, which in my view is, because of the purpose that we're going to use that building for, it very well suits our needs. I think it's a tremendous value. We've done a little bit of analysis. I asked Tony to kind of calculate what the cost of the Hall of Justice was, and I think the square footage price is around $800.
$825
a square foot. We're looking at between $75 and $100 a square foot on this building. So there's plenty of arguments on either side of the value equation, but from my perspective as a county facility and comparing it to options of building a facility or having someone build one for us, this is I think it's a tremendous value for the square footage.
Well, right next door is a new office building that was recently built by Carrot Construction that houses Chicago Title and some other 4 units, of which only I think 2 of them are actually occupied right now. And my understanding is that Mr. Carrick, it was to do all that, the landscaping, the parking lot, everything was $1.1 million. So, and that building is much smaller than this building
Do you
is.
have any idea what the square foot?
I would be
Yeah.
surprised if it's even half.
I think it might be like 8,000 or 9,000 square feet is what the size of that one versus,
And
not
he's-
10,000 square feet.
He's not obliged pursuant to law to pay prevailing wages.
Right. Exactly, it's a private construction, and it's private occupancy.
We would be.
Oh, yeah, we would. So, but I was surprised at the fact that that building was $1.1 million to build it, so, and that's like immediately right next door.
So I'm really excited about getting this large amount of space in a location that we desire in a relatively modern facility.
Well, had the state built the new court facility in a location uptown, or even help remodel the historic court site to be able to use it for the courts, we wouldn't be having to do that. That was one of the things back in 2002 and 3 that was heavily debated by relocating. They were actually looking at sites over by where the jail is as well, and they nixed uptown and they nixed the jail area and went to where they're at, which basically forces everybody who has to do business with the courts to look for some sort of, and this is the cost of having made that decision by them way back then. And we knew it was going to cost us something.
What jumped out at me about this process was the $73.38 per square foot purchase price. And if you put the remodel costs into it, it jumps it up $10 a square foot. You can't even come close to building something like that for $85, $90 a square foot. And that's on the rich side. I mean, and when I toured that facility with Aaron and Tony, I could see it launching us into the future. Good purchase.
Any more questions?
I just have one add. In the attached to the resolutions, the commercial property sale agreement, and I admitted to put the Exhibit A title on the top of that document, and it doesn't change anything. There's no material changes to the document other than we're going to have an Exhibit A title on there.
It's already included in the originals.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that they were aware of that.
Okay.
So when you make reference to Exhibit A in the resolution, this is the document you're...
Yes.
One other question.
Okay.
Are we sure that this is 2950 Riverside Drive and
I'm confident that it is, but we will be verifying all of that through the escrow process.
You just bought a 60-acre section in Ravenel.
No, I think it's the Moon Valley property.
Fences and all.
Don't jinx it.
Okay. Being no more questions, the chair would entertain a motion.
I move we pass resolution number 15-043.
Second. Second. Any more discussion?
Can we be certain that the motion sets out everything enumerated in the action requested, numbers 1 and 2? If you please, sir.
Yes.
So that's also to authorize me to execute whatever documents.
Adopt resolution after action and if it offers the form and action instead of consistent with this.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Excellent.
yes, I think
Supervisor Chapman?
Aye.
Supervisor Alba? Supervisor Hemphill?
Aye.
Supervisor Hammond?
Aye.
Supervisor Clark?
All right. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we down to information for the Board of Supervisors, the CIO.
Yep, two items, Mr. Chairman. The Sierra Army Depot has sent us an invitation for their change of command, which will be on July 9th at 10 o'clock at the parade field. I'm sure Supervisor Hammond is aware of that. I'm not sure what I plan on attending that.
What's that?
The change of command.
I'm at RSVP.
Okay, if you could either, did you all get an invitation? Okay. So if
I
you,
got mine email.
if you like, you can let Regina know if you're attending.
Yes.
Okay, that'd be great. And I plan on going to that as well. The other thing, I'll be out of town leaving this afternoon until Monday, and I'm going to ask Mel Brawley to place if there's anything that comes up. But I'll also have my telephone. That's all I have.
Okay, that it? Meeting adjourned.
Ten.
They were going to speak or what?